Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into Australian InkyPod. Today we have Taylor, who is the founder of CHUG, an online food and beverage directory that lists happy hour and cheap eats from restaurants and outlets across Victoria. In part 1, we discuss how Taylor ended up in the food and beverage industry, how he came up with the idea of CHUG, and the difficulties he faced in convincing initial users of its value. He's joined by hosts Jackie and Brendan.
Welcome to Australian InkyPod. Thanks for joining us, Taylor.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Taylor, tell us a bit about yourself.
So my name is Taylor. I'm 25 years old. I'm originally from Tasmania. I moved to Melbourne when I was 19 to study film and TV at the Victorian College of the Arts.
Oh wow, why Melbourne?
It's not Tasmania.
Yeah.
That's why. I don't know if you've been to Tasmania, but a population of 500,000. Our town has 26,000 people. There's 3 bars. You go out to the bar and you see your teachers. So I just wanted to get out into a place that had culture, and that's what brought me to Melbourne.
Was there not much interest in film and TV down in Tasmania?
That was just as much an excuse to get out of Tasmania.
Yeah.
That's what I spent the last 10 years making films, shooting photography, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, but I'll apply for film and TV, and got in, and that was the justification for moving to Melbourne.
Yeah. So you started off in film and TV. So how did the idea of CHUG come about?
So I finished my 3-year course in film and TV and realized that's not what I wanted to do. And then I also realized I didn't want to have a job.
Yeah.
Like, to get ahead in the film industry, you've got to start out as like a runner, you got to start low. And then the idea is that, bit by bit, you move up and up and up and up and up. And it's also dependent on having lots of people as well. To make a film, you've got your director, producer, actors, DOP, costume, makeup, and 50 other roles. I wanted to build something that I didn't have to be dependent on other people to. And so essentially what I built was a platform that disperses information that, thanks to the internet, there can be 1,000 people on it at once, and, I can handle that myself.
So was there anything in particular about the food and beverage industry that drew you in?
After year 12, I spent 2 months traveling around Europe. I went to Italy, Switzerland, Spain, and France. And not only is it just a phenomenal place to be, but alcohol is cheap as well. So a bottle of one of my favorite drinks, the Jägermeister, costs $10. You come to Australia and it costs you $45, simply because the government wants to tax the hell out of it and put some money in their pockets. So then I started looking around to, find happy hours and cheap eats in Melbourne, and couldn't find an online resource that did it correctly. And that's why I started CHUG. Because I was like, look, there's a niche. I know there's a demand for it. So why not do it myself?
So how did you go about validating that idea, and what happened when you first brought out CHUG as a service?
So validating the idea was a fairly quick process. I built CHUG because of my needs. If I was building something bigger, I would work a lot harder to validate the idea, but very small startup costs, so I had very little to lose.
So you were just building for something for yourself to use.
Yeah, and look, there was already another platform out there. What they did wasn't very good at all. So I knew there was a demand. I was just going to serve that demand better than what the other guys were doing.
So if you could go back, would you look into other ways to validate the idea, or for early startups, that's just the way to go?
It totally depends on the idea. If it's something that you think has never been done before, then yeah, I think there should be a lot of time spent on validating the idea. It really comes down to the idea, and how much time and money it's gonna take to make a MVP.
Just so we are touching base on MVP now. So developing the entire MVP, you mentioned you were inside. Was there anyone that helped you out along the way to develop that website? So
I paid a lot of money to a website company to build it for me. Yeah. Not a lot of money, but I had some money tucked away. And I was very bought into the idea that, look, build it, and then it's just going to generate cash down the track. And they built it for me.
So are you still with that company now, working with them, or because a lot of website development and a lot of startups, they come on and they say that initial website development cost is like moderate to high, but maintenance cost is actually what's killing them.
Yeah, these guys have upped their prices since I started with them. So I'm not going to do any more work with them. They're still hosting the website. But yeah, certainly like if I want to make adjustments, if I want to add anything, it's just money on money on money.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's not something I can justify.
Yeah, definitely.
So what I'm looking for going forward is finding a co-founder, a web developer and an app developer who can come on and get some equity, and then we can make those changes and then grow even more.
So what were some of the major challenges in the early days when you first started?
The first challenge I encountered is credibility, really, because I'm going to restaurants and bars or approaching them and saying, hey, you should be on our platform, and they're getting approached, multiple times. If they're in the marketing department, multiple times a week, if not, more than that. And not every restaurant and bar understands the value that, website like CHUG can bring. And look, when it starts, when it first launched, there's very little value there because we can't show how many users we have, how many views we get. And so it's being able to sell that to, the bar and restaurant owners and say, hey, look, you should join CHUG because of this and this and this. So that's certainly the biggest challenge. And it's certainly ongoing, like we've built it up to, I think this year we'll have a little over 200,000 users. But even then, you still have to go through a process of educating the owner or the marketing department. Some are fantastic. Some jump on it straight away. Some reach out to us. Others is a bit of a process to tell them why they should be on it. And we also don't charge for a listing as well. It's completely free. And that makes a lot of people question what's going on as well, because often
Price is quality.
Yeah, and often, if something's free, they'll often expect an upsell down the track as well. This is free, but to really get the benefits, you have to pay X amount of dollars.
Yeah, like a freemium type of model.
Yeah, and look, we've got featured packages, but being like a basic listing gets you just as many features, pretty much, as a featured listing. With a featured listing, you get bumped to the top and you get a bit more exposure. But as far as your listing's concerned, they're identical, same amount of photos, same information, all of that.
So what were the early day responses? If you were getting rejected, how did you work your way around that kind of?
Look, if you get rejected, move on, find someone else. There's a couple of hundred venues out there. More to be honest. There's 21,000 venues in Victoria. There's been some who've said no, thank you, and that's fine. Just move on to the next.
Do you think that other competitors in the space kind of deteriorated the perception of how online websites are?
Yeah, for sure. There's some shifty stuff out there for sure.
Yeah,
I think any industry's got the same thing, especially when we're giving something away for free as well. Yeah.
So how much time do you think it took you to generate that credibility in the market?
Oh, it's still ongoing.
Still ongoing?
It's still ongoing, yeah. We're actually called, when it first launched, it was called the Melbourne Cheapskate.
Yeah,
which
doesn't help.
It doesn't help, no. Because it started off as just
I like it.
Yeah, I didn't. I hated it. It started off as a blog, and I was like, look, I'll just do it, make it about myself. But then I realized, no, look, if it's going to be positioned in the correct way, it's got to be more than just me. It's got to be, a company, a business. Something short, something catchy, something that has some credibility,
Yeah. So you said in the early days you just funded the website with your own money. Did you get any other types of funding, or was it just all bootstrapped by yourself?
I studied at RMIT. I did what's called the NEIS program, which is the New Enterprise Initiative Scheme. So I spent 3 months there studying small business, and they gave me funding for 9 months. But outside of that, it's completely self-funded, yeah.
Do you think there were a lot of things you gained being inside a program offered by universities besides from the funding? Mentorship?
I've got a pretty big issue with uni, especially those who try and teach, entrepreneurship and all of that. I think it's a bit of It's all fluff. I think the best way to learn is to get out there and actually do it
Mm-hmm.
and save yourself tens of thousands of dollars in hex. I learned a few things and I made some good connections. I did it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did it for the funding.
That's like one of the main drivers for a lot of things. Like you don't have the money, you're going to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
And the best place is uni. They don't take equity.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend going to uni to learn how to be an entrepreneur.
That was part 1 of our 2-part interview with Taylor from CHUG. Follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, as well as Instagram, and stay tuned for part 2.